Barb Mandrell quit one of the most popular TV shows when it was at its peak of popularity. No goodbye show, no word, just silence. Fans have been wondering for more than 40 years why she ended it all, when the Mandrell sisters were just getting started. She is now 76 years old and has finally opened up. And the real reason she broke up with Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell sisters. Fans are crying over the truth she's been hiding for decades. Since it wasn't just her voice. She couldn't say it out loud. Not up until now. Nobody loved the Mandrell sisters more than everyone else on TV in the early 1980s. Barbara, Louise, and Earlene weren't just famous people in country music. A lot of people in America watched them every week. Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell sisters were the first people to put together a variety show that mixed music, comedy, and the charm of sisters. The melodies were tight, the chemistry was natural, and the laughter was real. Barbara was the main character and the center of attention. On stage, no one else had her ability. She could dance, jump rope, tell jokes, play a lot of instruments, and sing a sad song all in 1 hour. Louise was the steady one with a heart. And Earlene, the youngest, brought a spark of youth and a quick wit that made everything even. As a group, they weren't just entertainers. They worked together. And that togetherness lit up TV screens all over the country for 2 seasons. From the start, the show was a big hit. People loved the positive vibe, the glitz, and the feeling of seeing real sisters enjoy each other. Before streaming, this was TV that you had to watch by arrangement. The event was fun, with family and friends, and Barbara's name was on the marquee. However, her sister's shine was never taken away. Behind the scenes, though, things moved very quickly. Barbara wasn't just the star of a comedy show. She was still putting out records, going on solo tours, and performing at award shows and charity events. It was crazy how much people wanted her time and voice. It looked like the hour of entertainment people watched at home was perfect every week, but the truth was more difficult. For Barbara, success wasn't just about making a lot of money. It also cost her something. She later admitted that she was working too hard and getting too tired. Her voice, her way of making a living, was hurting. Her energy was running low, and the stress of having been in the public eye since she was a kid was making her less happy. But no one thought she would quit, so when she did, it shocked everyone in the business. The Mandrell girls were doing their best. Their grades were good. Their fans stuck with them. They were only just beginning. There was no goodbye episode or big exit. There was just a message. The show was over. And they wouldn't come back. Barbara told the press that it was because her voice was hurting, and that she needed to take care of it if she wanted to keep recording songs. At least on the surface, fans agreed with the answer because it was polite and kind. Fans and people close to the family, who had watched every show, started to wonder if that was the whole story. Why didn't they get back together later, even after Barbara's singing got better? Why didn't they just get back together once for the fans? What took place behind the scenes that no one dared to talk about? Their silence grew louder over the years, louder than any melody they ever sang. Louise and Earlene kept working on their own projects, but the three of them, who had seemed to be linked at first, stayed apart. And Barbara kept going by herself. Now that many years have passed, and she is no longer in the spotlight, Barbara Mandrell is ready to tell the truth. Not just how the show ended, but also what it cost her, and how it hurt her relationship with her sisters. For most people, Barbara Mandrell couldn't be stopped. When Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell sisters first came out in 1980, she wasn't just a singer. She was a star. She had already won Entertainer of the Year twice from the Country Music Association, and her records were selling a lot of copies. She was great on stage and could play more than 20 instruments. She could quickly switch from choir to pop country. Still, Barbara was slowly falling apart behind the steel, and sparkle of her star polish. The plan wouldn't let up. It took a lot of time and effort to film the variety show. She didn't stop there, though. She kept going on tours, writing albums, and making a lot of public appearances. Besides that, she was expected to keep up her job as the family leader. The oldest sister, the star of the show, and the one who kept everything together. Even though she was only in her early 30s, her health was getting worse. Her voice, which had carried her since she was a child, started to break when it was overused and worn out. After the show was over, she admitted that her voice cords were sore from all the strain. She was afraid of long-term harm. Not many people knew that Barbara was also fighting something that no one could see. The stress of having to please everyone. She wasn't just the main character. She was the name, the bond, and what people expected. The sign had her name on it. The show's legitimacy came from her work. Even though her sisters were great on their own, Barbara was the one who had to take care of things if something went wrong. That weight began to change her in a quiet way. People who knew her began to notice that she wasn't herself. The happy spark that used to light up every stage arrival was no longer as bright. She used to laugh easily, but now it came out tired. Barbara did what she always did. She showed up, gave her all, and never let anyone see how much pain she was in. But behind the scenes, the cracks were becoming clear. Barbara has never said anything bad about her sisters. There wasn't a big fight or debate in public. But in the last few years, she's let some small facts come to light. She felt alone with one of them. Not because of her sisters as people, but because of the part she had to play. As the oldest, she was the one who always went above and beyond. Her job was to lead without asking for help in many ways. The show's demands got too much for Barbara, and she didn't think she could tell her sisters about the choice. It made her feel like she had to end it, take the blame, and leave on her own. It was simpler to say it had to do with her voice. It was, in some ways. Barbara knew something else, though. When she told him, "I can't do this anymore." The stage, the show, and the crowd were the only things that linked the three of them. She wasn't sure they'd ever get back. She chose to protect herself. Though it's been decades, you can still hear the weight of that choice in her voice because she didn't just leave a TV show. In a past version of her life, she left a group of sisters who worked together toward a common goal. Things weren't the same after that was gone. The show didn't come back. The three never got back together on TV. As time went on, Barbara Mandrell moved farther away from the main attention. But the choice that kept her voice may have broken something else in the background. At least not in public. Louise and Erlene Mandrell didn't fight the choice. It was a simple story when Barbara stopped the Mandrell sisters show in 1982. Barbara had to give her voice a break. The network put out a comment. Fans were sad about the death. Louise and Erlene, on the other hand, didn't say much. They were nice about it. They didn't blame anyone. And they never disagreed with Barbara's account of what happened. But the stillness said enough. Both sisters talked about that time with bittersweet tones in interviews many years later. They said nice things about Barbara's skills and how hard she worked. They also liked their time on the show. Behind the smiles and grace, though, there was a slight undercurrent that suggested there was unfinished business, and that even they were surprised by the ending. They were, after all, at their best. Louise was starting to get noticed as a singer and artist in her own right. Erlene was becoming more well known for both her comedy timing and her ability to play the drums. At the time, this was very rare for female artists. The three of them were no longer just sisters. People loved them because they were a brand and a family. So, when it finished quickly without a farewell show or final curtain call, it didn't feel like the end. It felt more like something that just disappeared. It was clear to Louise and Erlene what the message was. It wasn't their choice. Barbara didn't mean to hurt them. That's been clear in everything she's said since then. There's no doubt that she loves her sisters. There are still questions, and maybe even hurts, that haven't been spoken about the choice she made, even though it was the right thing to do for her own health. They never got back together in public the same way again. There were no anniversary events, revival shows, or full-on stage reunions to say goodbye to the millions of fans who loved them. Even though all three sisters continued to have success in their own right, Barbara with her solo business, Louise with her own albums, and Earlene with TV appearances, they never got back to being a trio. Barbara once said that leaving the show was like giving up a part of her life that she could never get back. But she didn't say, and didn't need to, that it might have cost her more than just a part or a rhythm. It might have cost her a time when she was close to her sisters that she could never get back. Fans often thought that the Mandrell sisters would get back together one day for a special, a tour, or at least one last appearance on TV, but it never happened. And as the years went by, the silence spoke louder than anything else. In recent thoughts, Barbara has admitted that ending the show, even though it was physically necessary, was very hard on her and the other people they were close to. She said it made a hole between them that they could never quite fill again. There is no fight or anger. There is only quiet, polite, permanent space. Fans who watch them sing and laugh together every week find it hard to accept the truth, because the show wasn't just for fun. It was family. Really felt like I was part of a group. It wasn't just the end of a show when Barbara left. That was the end of a moment that would never fully come back. Now, decades later, Barbara finally talks about why she made her choice, and fans are feeling something they didn't expect. Not just sadness, but also grief. Because many people know deep down that they never got to say goodbye either. It seemed like a sudden end to Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell sisters in 1982. For many fans, it felt like a short-term thing. This must have been just a break. Barbara would get some rest, her voice would get better, and the sisters would be ready to give even more when they came back. That time never came, though. Barbara later put out more records by herself. She won awards, played to packed houses, and was a mainstay of country music well into the 1990s. But now something was different. Her singing stayed strong, but she became less visible in public. She went from having a lot of fire and sparkle on stage to being quieter, more thoughtful, and more reserved. She finally stopped acting altogether in 1997, stepping away from the spotlight to spend more time with her family and her faith. She left with grace, but many people felt like it wasn't complete because the Mandrell sisters never showed up on stage together again. They never went on reunion tours or did interviews together talking about the good old days. They also never did anniversary shows where they laughed about the chaos of live TV and the bond they used to have. Fans would sometimes see pictures of them all together at family events or country music honors, but that was the end of the trio as fans knew it. Louise Mandrell kept singing and recording, making a name for herself. Besides the show, she was in her own live shows, and was known for being patriotic and putting on good shows. Earlene tried to get a job on TV and did acting and comedy work on her own. Both sisters kept going, but they always did things in different lanes. And they almost never, if ever, talked about what the three of them had built together in public. Even so, their fans always asked. The question stayed around for decades. When did they get back together? Did they have a fight? Do you think Barbara felt bad? Did the girls get hurt? People were quiet. Was it to protect them, or because they didn't know how to heal the wound? Barbara never blamed. She didn't say much more than what she had already said. Her voice was tired. But now that she is 76, she talks about that choice in a different way. She's been more careful with her words this time, and there's a hint of sadness under them for the first time. She just recently said that stopping the show meant more than just taking a break from TV. It was like shutting the door on a moment that could never happen again. She thought about it. It wasn't just a show. We did it because it was part of who we were. Fans were as shocked as a stone dropped into still water by that simple words. Because for a long time, they thought it was just another fail. They are now seeing that it was more than that. A choice that changed not only Barbara's job, but also how she related to her sisters, and how she related to them. Country music is full of sad songs about family, loss, and giving up things you want. Aside from that, the Mandrell sister story is one of a kind because it's not about murder or scandal. It's about being alone, making a choice, and the pain that stays with you. Fans still talk about old episodes of the show and wonder at how well the three sisters got along, and how easy it was for them to joke around with each other. People who watched ask, "Why did this end? I miss seeing them together," says someone else. In fact, Barbara does too. She used to carry everything. The hopes of millions of people, her sisters, and her voice. She put it down when the weight got too much. But by doing that, she gave up a part of her life that she could never get back. She and her friends never forgot. These days, Barbara Mandrell doesn't live near the fame she used to have. These days, she doesn't tour or record, and she doesn't show up in public very often. She's 76 years old now, and seems happy with the quiet life she made for herself after years of living with a lot of noise. But once in a while, a memory gets through. Recently, Barbara has started to talk about the things she used to avoid in deeply thought-out interviews, rare reflective pieces, and memoir-style memories. They should be honest, not with anger or drama, but with the view of someone who has lived long enough to see the whole picture. The tone changes when she talks about Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell sisters. She doesn't think too much about how popular the show was, even though it was huge. There are no awards or scores on her list. She keeps thinking about how they felt, how they moved together, how trusting they were of each other, and how the beat felt natural when they were all on stage together, smiling like they had nothing to prove. She says that feeling is what she misses the most. She once said in a quiet voice, "I didn't know how special it was until it was over." Barbara has never thought of her choice as a mistake. Her voice was really in danger. Without stopping the show, she might have hurt her voice, body, and head in the long run. What she had to do, she did. But now, after all these years, she's starting to say things she couldn't before. That it cost a lot more than she thought it would. She couldn't save everything else when she took a step back to protect herself. She wasn't able to save the three of them and keep their bond strong like it used to be. Even though they didn't fight or break up, there was something missing between them. The stage was where they were close, they shared a beat, and they were happy. She said that she wished there was time for one more show. Not for the fame or the fans, but for them, the sisters who did magic without even trying. But time went by. There were different paths they took in life. That relationship stayed the same for those 2 short seasons, no matter what it was. Fans, on the other hand, are only now learning what they missed. Videos of the old show are still getting millions of views on YouTube. And now that Barbara has finally told the whole truth, not just the medical reason, but also how it makes her feel, those questions hit even harder. Not only was she tired, she was stressed out. It wasn't just to keep her voice down. The speed she was going through would have broken anyone else. She lost something that could not be replaced when she did that. They never blamed her, and she never blamed them. But anger doesn't always lead to distance. They are made when someone chooses life over sacrifice, when someone is missing. And people who have lived long enough to carry both can really understand that choice. Barbara will always be remembered in country music. Because of her skill, professionalism, and years of hard work, she will always have a place in American society. But her finally broken quiet may be what strikes a chord the most. Because there is a shade behind every light. And every strong woman has a price she doesn't talk about much until now. Fans hoped for decades for one more moment, one more unity, and one more laugh between the sisters on stage. It didn't come. Fans have finally learned something they hadn't let themselves feel until Barbara Mandrell talked about what that choice really cost her. They didn't get to say goodbye. Not to the show, not to the trio, and not to that one perfect moment when everything was right. Barbara isn't trying to get help. She hasn't ever. But at age 76, she's finally sharing the truth that many of her fans didn't want to hear. This means that even the loudest sounds are quiet. And what saves you can also split you. What she had to do, she did. And she's only now letting herself feel sad about what happened. For those who remember the sparkle, the family, and the fun times they had laughing with the Mandrells on Saturday nights. The pain is real. We now know it wasn't just a show. No one saw that link, that moment, that goodbye coming. Moment? A goodbye that no one saw coming.